right, guys. So I am going to read just a couple of short stories here. Thank you, my love. And my lovely wife gave me whiskey, so all is right with the world. Um, but yeah, I'm going to do a couple of short stories, mainly due to the fact that reading from works in progress has always been kind of a haphazard thing for me. I'll just stick with stuff that's finished, and everybody gets a whole story. So the first one we're going to do is called New Names. He didn't hate it. There were plenty of books, movies, a few television shows that portrayed immortals as unhappy. They were often brooding and suicidal. He felt neither of those things, especially not suicidal. The thought was ludicrous. Adam had watched thousands, hundreds of thousands of mortals grasping to life as they ran out of it. There was a saying that he agreed with, one that made more sense to him than any words ever spoken. He put voice to that saying as he worked on the new passport. The older you get, the longer you want to live. He chuckled at the saying while his hands kept moving, fingertips tapping keys to fill in new data around the picture of him that had been accurate for uncountable years. It really was a good one. Adam used the mouse, centering the photo inside of its perforated frame. There would have to be a new hairstyle at some point. Shaving his head was an oldie, one that had worked through the dark ages for some reason. But there were too many men doing that now. They were all covering the appearance of old age, which was laughable in most instances. Colored contacts would be good as well. He would have to blend in for a while until his appetites took control once more. He usually made it 30 or 40 years without incident, but that time limit wasn't always accurate. He missed the days of anonymity. There had been so much fun to be had before technology saturated the world. During the last 100 years, things had become more challenging. A man's exploits were no longer just stories passed by word of mouth, wanted posters drawn with crude and talentless hands. Now, in this strangely isolated world where people use their physical voice less and less, news of anything out of the ordinary spread in mere seconds. It was challenging. He took a sip from the glass sitting to the right of his keyboard. His eyes never left the monitor, but the action was so practiced that looking to find a cup was not needed. A man could perfect any action given time to practice it. He'd had time, if nothing else. He clicked on the icon that would save his work, something he did often despite the need to completely erase it when he was finished. In another few minutes, the printer would begin spitting out his new life, or at least a damn good illusion of one. This was another of those things he'd practiced. Adam knew that trusting his identity shifts with anyone else would be akin to folly. Sure, he would be able to convince any person of almost anything for a time. That was his gift. Charm could be used to nudge mortals in any direction of his choosing, but only for a time. If he stayed in their presence, the effect would last, but the moment he was out of sight, it would begin to wear away. He remembered a woman, the first one that he could ever remember, and the thing he wanted her to do. The stories about forbidden fruits and trees were symbolic, but they were close enough to the truth for him. That prison the two of them had been put in wasn't enough for Adam, and the choice to find a way out was the best he'd ever made. Thanks to the woman, he'd gotten away with it too. There were others, men and women, the aged and the youthful. They all listened when he spoke, took what he said as perfect truth, and played their parts as puppets in his play for so many moments in eternity. He was always fine when playing with others. It was when he wanted to put his own hands to work, when the urge overtook him as night always did day, that things got complicated. His words kept him safe, but his hands were treacherous things that caused all sorts of trouble. His grin, a warm expression when he wanted it to be, was cold in the reflection he saw on the monitor. His lips were thick and perfect for smiling, but at the moment he could see how reptilian they might look when seen at the wrong moment. His eyes were a striking green. Blue would be the next color. He'd had green eyes during his last indiscretion, and that color might help to damn him. He nodded at the thought. Adam heard the special printer come to life. Things were coming along. He thought about Europe because he hadn't been there in some time. Germany? Maybe. The Germans were an interesting people that seemed to have more fun than a lot of their neighbors. The sex would be good. He always enjoyed that. He stood from his chair, the movement causing his naked body to cover with goose flesh. He would have to wash the blood off before leaving the apartment, a regrettable thing every time he had to do it. There was a time when it wouldn't have mattered. Adam's eyes went to the man and woman he'd entertained for the past few days. He would miss them, but death took the fun out of things. A shower, that would do nicely. So that's the first short story, strange as it might be. Need whiskey for the vocal cords. The next one is even more weird, most likely. Here to you. This one is called Tractors. It was driving everyone completely, ragingly, absolutely insane, but that did not deter Andrew. He rolled his tractor around the kitchen floor, bulky plastic tires over seamed hardwood, imitating the sounds he thought a real tractor should make. His voice was a childish rumble from a man-sized throat. Andrew, his younger sister finally broke, if you don't quit that shit, I'm going to put you outside. He paused, looking up at Regina from his place near the china cabinet, and smiled widely. She was smoking a cigarette, one of the long ones that looked more like a coffee stirrer than it did a cancer stick, and he knew that their mother was probably doing the same thing in the other room. She was glaring at him, annoyed at his playing, but that didn't matter. Andrew kept his eyes on hers. He growled in the voice of the tractor, rolling a large toy across a particularly noisy gap in the flooring. Regina looked away. She hated when he smiled like that. Andrew knew it and made sure to throw the look her way whenever he had the chance. He was, after all, the older of his mother's children. He couldn't be punished by the girl sitting at the table, no matter how much she might want to throttle him. Jesus, Regina huffed, a cloud of smoke pluming from her throat. Clack, 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 clack. His mother came into the room, thin cigarette clamped between thin lips and trailing smoke. He felt her stepping over him. It was nice when his mother joined them in the kitchen. She never seemed very happy about it, but Andrew liked having her in a place where he could look at her. He did just that, shoving the hair away from his eyes so the view wouldn't be obstructed. Mom? What? Can you get him to stop? Andrew's eyes narrowed at the question from his sister. He saw his mother's face pinch inward, as if she regretted the sound of Regina's voice. He waited. If Mother told him to stop his play, he might actually do it, but there would be problems later. His throat continued creating tractor sounds, but he didn't move the vehicle back and forth as he had been. You just ignore him. He's just playing. The smile on his face widened and his noises got louder. The clacking of wheels over gaps became more and more maddening with each thrust and withdrawal of his hand. He waited for one of them to shout again, hoped for it because even he was becoming annoyed by the noise. Andrew parted his lips to get more out of the sound. His teeth were grinding together unpleasantly. Oh my God, Mom, please tell him to stop. Silence from their mother. He knew now that she wouldn't be saying anything at all. He wondered if it was the smile that stopped her. He let Regina see it again. He's 20 years old, Mom. Just tell him to quit it. He ain't a baby anymore. The sound of skin meeting skin, the sight of Mother slapping Regina was always better when it was nice and loud. He wanted it to happen again. Another slap. It sounded so good that he wanted to hear it over and over. His mother was shouting at Regina, telling her to shut up, telling her that Andrew would do whatever he wanted to do and that she didn't have a choice in the matter. The shouts were littered with curse words. Andrew loved curse words, though he didn't use them himself. The wheels on the tractor kept clacking. He decided that more noise was in order, began to raise the toy up and smack the wheels against the floor. It was much better than rolling it. You wouldn't do this if Daddy was, Regina tried to scream in between slaps. Andrew saw that Regina was crying now. He felt the thing happening in his pants that always happened when his mother got after his sister. He was breathing harder, finding it more and more difficult to keep up with the tractor sounds. He gripped his thing with his free hand and squeezed as hard as he could. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, you little bitch. Mother's cigarette had fallen to the floor. He didn't know where Regina's had gone, but he didn't much care about that. There were red marks all over her face and bare shoulders. The area around one of her eyes was swelling in front of him. Mother was far from done slapping. Andrew saw that one of the woman's hands had closed into a fist. He knew that the other hand would soon follow that example. Andrew gripped himself somehow harder, feeling a mixture of searing pain and pleasure. The tractor now lay abandoned next to him, though his throat had begun producing a roar that was far deeper than the tractor noises ever were. There was going to be blood. He knew it was coming. The first splash came from Regina's nose, causing something else to happen for Andrew. The roar became a stuttering moan, and the hand that had been on the tractor was now hammering the floor next to him, pounding the wooden planks. This was so much better than when Daddy had shouted that last time. Mother always protected him from their yells, and sometimes he protected her. When there was enough blood pouring from Regina's nose and mouth, Mother stopped the hitting. She was breathing just as hard as Andrew had been only seconds before. She stared down at Regina's slumped form, listened to the girl crying as quietly as she could. Mother reached for another cigarette, lit it, took a long breath from the burning thing. Andrew, you put your toy up. Regina's going to make some dinner. Andrew smiled up at her before plucking the toy from the floor. He stood feeling the wetness on the inside of his pants press against his leg. He didn't mind it, but Mother was looking at the spot. And change your pants before you come back in here. He nodded, turned to look at his sister once more. She was still alive, but Daddy had been alive a bunch of times before that, too. Well, there we go, guys. Yet another very strange story from the mind of Wayne Lemmons for you. Tiffany, are you stuck on mute?
Yeah, I just unmuted myself. Well, thanks for sharing those. And I know you said you said earlier that you're working on a new novel right now.
Yeah, I've actually got the final draft in my sights on A Box Left Open, which is a sci-fi psychological thriller. You know me, I can't really stick with a genre like normal people. But yeah, this one I don't believe I'm going to self-publish. I've got letters out to agents, so I'm trying that route now.
Well, good luck with all of that. If there's anything we can do at Wordier to help you out, let us know. And
you can give me a bunch of money so I can write all the time.
Well, you know, we are a nonprofit, so
me too.
Aren't we all?
Right. No, thank you very much for having me as usual, Tiffany.
Anytime. I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all be good now.
Good night, everybody.
See ya.